I said it without thinking. That alone should have killed me. The Galactic Concord Hall was engineered to intimidate. Cathedral-high ceilings of transparent alloy, gravity tuned to keep every species uncomfortable, banners of conquered civilizations hanging like trophies. The air smelled of ionized metal, pheromones, and old fear. 1,000 delegates from 1,000 empires stood in silent rows, watching history bend under alien claws. And there I was. Lieutenant Marcus Hale. United Terran Fleet. Military attaché by title, political sacrificial offering by reality. I'd been awake for 36 hours, fueled by recycled coffee and spite, listening to alien aristocrats debate whether humanity deserved protected species, status, or resource competitor classification. Translation: zoo exhibit or target. Across the hall she stood. The queen of the Valari Dominion. Even by alien standards she was wrong. Too symmetrical. Too still. Her armor wasn't worn, it was grown, layered chitin interwoven with gold-veined obsidian. 4 eyes watched everything, missing nothing. Every Valari victory for the last 3,000 years bore her seal. Entire star systems had gone dark because she had found them inefficient. She wasn't supposed to be beautiful. She was supposed to be terrifying. But exhaustion strips filters from the human brain. It makes poets out of soldiers and idiots out of diplomats. I leaned back in my chair, rubbed my face, and muttered in Terran Standard, barely louder than a breath. Queen's so beautiful. The word beautiful had barely left my mouth when the room died. Not quiet, dead. 1,000 conversations snapped shut. Delegates stiffened. Guards pivoted weapons in perfect unison. Even the Concorde's ambient hum seemed to fade, like the universe itself holding its breath. My translator implant chirped cheerfully. Automatic translation complete. It replayed my words. At full volume. In Valari high cant. So exquisitely beautiful. I felt my soul leave my body, pause to laugh at me, then keep going. Behind me, something moved. Not footsteps. Not breath. A presence. Human, a voice said, smooth and cold, layered with harmonic undertones that vibrated through bone. Explain. I turned slowly. The Queen was standing directly behind me. She hadn't crossed the hall. She hadn't announced herself. One moment she'd been 30 meters away, the next she was close enough that I could see microscopic scars etched into her armor. Battle damage, not decoration. Her gaze locked onto mine. 4 eyes. No blinking. Concord guards raised plasma lances. Valari honor blades slid from ceremonial sheaths with a sound like screaming metal. Someone, possibly the amphibian trade minister, collapsed onto the floor in a puddle of slime and regret. The Queen studied my face. You speak of Valari royalty as one would speak of a weapon, she said. Or a conquest. Or a mate. Her head tilted slightly. Which was your intent? Every survival instinct I had screamed kneel, apologize, beg. The room expected it. The galaxy expected it. Humans were new, weak, tolerated only because we were amusingly stubborn. But I was tired. And angry. And Earth had already been insulted 12 times that day. So I did the most dangerous thing imaginable. I told the truth. No intent, Your Majesty, I said evenly. Just an observation. A ripple of shock ran through the chamber. The Queen stared at me for a long, stretched second. Then she laughed. Not polite laughter. Not diplomatic amusement. Real laughter. It boomed through the hall like distant artillery, vibrating the Concorde pillars. Several delegates recoiled. One of the hive mind representatives disconnected a drone in what I swear was panic. Fascinating, the Queen said. You do not deny. You do not flatter further. You do not fear. I do fear, I replied. I just don't see the point right now. That earned me another stare, and another laugh. She stepped closer. Her shadow swallowed me. The air grew heavier, charged with the subtle pressure of her personal gravity field. Human Marcus Hale, she said, tasting my name. You will accompany me. My stomach dropped. "Ma'am," I said carefully, "my orders are irrelevant," she interrupted. "This session is concluded." She turned, already walking away. The Concord speaker, a gelatinous being that took centuries to offend, tried to object. "Your Majesty, protocol." The Queen stopped. Just stopped. She didn't turn around. But the temperature in the hall dropped 10 degrees. "Protocol," she said softly, "is what happens when I am not present." Silence. Then she continued walking. 2 Valari honor guards flanked me instantly, weapons lowered but very ready. I shot a glance back at the human delegation. Admiral Alvarez met my eyes through the chaos. She didn't mouth sorry. She mouthed pay attention. That scared me more. We passed through corridors older than human civilization, walls etched with reliefs of Valari victories, worlds burning, species kneeling, stars caged. Every step felt like walking deeper into a predator's throat. The Queen finally stopped in a private chamber overlooking the Concord Hall. A single window of reinforced crystal showed the galaxy's elite scrambling below like ants. She turned to me. "You are either very brave," she said, "or very foolish. Humanity has trouble telling the difference," I replied. One of her eyes narrowed. "You insult yourself freely." "Habit," I said, "keeps others from doing it wrong." Another pause. Then, "Why did you call me beautiful?" There it was. The question that mattered. I exhaled slowly. "Because you're standing at the center of a room full of people who hate you, fear you, or want something from you, and you look completely unbothered." Her expression shifted. Not anger. Not pride. Interest. "That," she said, "is not beauty. That is dominance." "Same thing," I said. "Different species." She studied me like a specimen. "You know," she said at last, "my advisors recommended erasing your species within the century." My blood ran cold. "And?" I asked. "They believed humans were loud, fragile, sentimental." She leaned closer. "But you just spoke to me as an equal. An exhausted equal, but an equal nonetheless." I shrugged. "We do that sometimes." Her lips, mandibles really, curved slightly. "Leave," she commanded. "Return to your fleet. Tell your leaders this." She leaned in close enough that only I could hear. "The Valari Dominion is watching humanity with great interest." The guards escorted me out. As the doors sealed behind me, alarms began to sound across the Concord Hall. First contact protocols lit up. Diplomatic channels flared. War probability indexes quietly spiked. I didn't know it yet, but somewhere deep in Valari space, fleets were already moving. All because I'd been tired. All because I'd spoken one careless truth. And because the most dangerous woman in the galaxy had smiled. The Valari waited exactly 72 hours. That wasn't mercy. That was theater. 72 hours to let the galaxy speculate, to let human markets panic, to let politicians argue and admirals sharpen knives behind closed doors. 72 hours for fear to ferment. On the 73rd hour, the stars screamed. The first Valari fleet didn't arrive at Earth. That would have been too obvious. They hit New Jakarta Station, a civilian trade hub parked at Lagrange Point 5, no weapons heavier than point defense cannons, population north of 3 million. The attack was clean, efficient, and broadcast on every open channel. Valari doctrine valued instruction. New Jakarta burned in silence. No warning. No ultimatum. One moment it was lights and traffic, the next it was debris and frozen corpses spinning into vacuum. The message followed. A hologram of the Queen, flawless and calm. "Humanity," she said. "This is correction." Then the feed cut. On Earth, the reaction was not what the galaxy expected. There were no riots. No mass evacuations. No hysterical speeches. The United Terran Council met in emergency session and adjourned in 11 minutes. Admiral Ruth Alvarez walked into Fleet Command, looked at the casualty numbers, and said only one thing. Implement black silence. Across human space, something unprecedented happened. Nothing. No fleet mobilizations visible on alien sensors. No diplomatic protests. No threats. Human comm buoys went dark. Civilian channels were locked. Even entertainment broadcasts stopped mid-sentence. To the rest of the galaxy, humanity appeared paralyzed. The Valari interpreted this correctly. As weakness. The Queen watched from her throne ship as her fleets repositioned. They do not understand loss, she said mildly. They require further instruction. I stood at her side, wrists unbound but flanked by honor guards, my presence now officially classified as cultural leverage. A polite phrase meaning hostage with benefits. You're misreading us, I said. She didn't look at me. Your species grieves loudly. You are quiet. This is denial. No, I replied. This is counting. She turned one of her eyes toward me. Counting what? I smiled without humor. Mistakes. The second Valari strike came 6 hours later. Luna Outpost 7. Medical and Research Facility. Non-combatant designation filed with the Concord centuries ago. The Valari erased it with a precision kinetic lance that left the moon scarred like a fresh wound. 2 civilian targets. 2 lessons. The Queen waited for screams. What she got instead was a ghost. Without warning, Valari long-range sensors began to fail. Not all at once. That would have been obvious. They failed subtly, slight targeting drift, microsecond delays in jump calculations, sensor echoes where ships should be. Anomaly? The Queen asked. Minor, her tacticians replied. Within acceptable margins. Then a destroyer misjumped. It reappeared inside a gas giant. Another fired on a friendly cruiser after its IFF codes distinct by a fraction of a second. Supply ships began reporting empty holds, cargo logs intact, physical matter simply gone. The Queen's throne ship shuddered as something brushed its hull. What was that? She snapped. Debris? An officer suggested. I crossed my arms. You ever hear humans talk about ghosts and machines? She turned fully toward me now. You claim responsibility? I'm claiming inevitability, I said. You built an empire that runs on networks. We grew up breaking them. The first human transmission arrived 12 hours after Luna burned. Not a threat. Not a declaration. A single audio file. Old. Grainy. Recorded in a human male voice, calm and tired. This is Admiral Ruth Alvarez, United Terran Fleet. A pause. You have attacked civilian targets. That makes this simple. Another pause, long enough to let translators catch up. We are not coming for your worlds. Silence. We are coming for your systems. Across Valari space, navigation relays went dark. Jump gates began to desynchronize, trapping fleets between stars or spitting them out light years off target. Automated factories continued to run, but produced nothing useful, human logic bombs rewriting assembly instructions into elegant nonsense. The Queen's claws dug into her throne. Purge the networks, she ordered. Revert to organic command chains. Too late, I said softly. She ignored me. Then the casualty reports started arriving, not from combat, but from logistics collapse. Fleets stranded without fuel. Worlds missing shipments. Food riots on planets that had never known hunger. The Queen stood slowly. You did this without firing a shot, she said. We fired plenty, I replied. You just never saw the bullets. She faced me, eyes blazing. You will end it. I met her gaze. You don't get to decide when humans stop. For the first time since I'd met her, the Queen looked uncertain. And deep in Valari territory, something ancient and terrible was waking, human creativity, weaponized by grief. The war hadn't started with guns. But it was about to end with fire. The Valari adapted. They always did. That was what made them terrifying, not their strength, not their numbers, but their speed of correction. Within 48 hours, the Dominion tore its own nervous system out by the roots. Quantum relays were shattered. Autonomous fleets were placed under flesh and blood command. Star charts were redistributed as engraved crystal, immune to code and corruption. The Queen addressed her empire with a single phrase. We returned to the blade. And the blade answered. Valari fleets began to move again, slower, heavier, but deliberate. Without jump gates, they advanced like a tidal wall, system by system, burning human listening posts and smashing anything that tried to slow them. This was no longer instruction. This was extermination. Humanity finally spoke, through fire. The United Terran Fleet did not form elegant battle lines. We didn't have the ships for that. What we had were people. Refitted mining haulers bristling with missile racks. Museum piece carriers pulled out of mothballs. Civilian freighters welded into kinetic barges, their crews volunteers with old uniforms that still smelled like closets and regret. The first clash came at the Kuiper Line. Valari battleships emerged from the dark like obsidian mountains, honor blades mounted along their hulls, crews chanting war hymns older than Earth's oceans. Human ships burned toward them in ugly, uneven vectors, engines screaming in protest. No speeches. No countdowns. Just violence. Railgun slugs punched holes clean through Valari shields. Cheap tungsten accelerated to obscene speeds. Missile clouds bloomed like metallic pollen, overwhelming point defenses by sheer volume. Human pilots flew straight at enemy ships, trusting that their enemy's honor doctrine would hesitate just long enough. It did. Boarding actions followed. I was there, aboard the UTS Black River, a carrier held together by stubbornness and duct tape. Valari shock troops cut through the hull with thermal blades, their armor shrugging off small arms fire like rain. Human Marines met them screaming. Not battle cries. Laughter. I saw a sergeant with one arm torn off shove a grenade into a Valari knight's chest cavity and headbutt the detonator. I saw engineers vent entire compartments to space rather than retreat, dragging invaders with them into the void. The Queen watched through my helmet cam. Her silence was absolute. They are dying for nothing, she said finally. No, I replied, firing my sidearm until it clicked empty. They're dying so the next guy gets a chance. The Black River broke in half an hour later. We escaped in pods under fire, tumbling through debris and corpses. The Kuiper Line was a graveyard, human and Valari wreckage interlocked like lovers who'd strangled each other. Strategically? A draw. Psychologically? A catastrophe, for the Valari. They had never fought an enemy that treated death like currency. Then Earth crossed a line no empire ever should. Project Bridal Torch. The name was dark humor, very human. A joke told at a funeral. A single ship detached from the Terran fleet. No escort. No visible weapons. No shields beyond navigation-grade deflectors. Its transponder broadcast openly as it jumped, slowly, painfully, into Valari core space. The Queen went still. That ship is unarmed, she said. It is, I answered. Then it will die. No, I said. It will arrive. Valari defenses tracked it. Locked onto it. Then, hesitated. Because it wasn't a warship. It was a courier, built to Concord specifications, wrapped in treaty clauses, carrying diplomatic immunity like a shield. It slipped through. Straight to Velar Prime. The Queen's ancestral world. What is on that vessel? She demanded. I closed my eyes. Everything you took from us, I said. The ship transmitted one final message on all frequencies. We return what you value. Then the feed went white. Velar Prime's orbital palace, the symbol of Valari eternity, grown layer by layer over millennia, didn't explode. It came apart. Human matter disassembly tech, banned by 36 treaties, unfolded it atom by atom. Not destruction. Erasure. History reduced to particulate dust drifting into a star. The Queen screamed. Not in rage. In loss. Her claws tore into the deck as reports flooded in. Cultural archives gone, genetic lineages vaporized, relics older than her species reduced to noise. "You targeted our soul," she said, voice breaking. I met her gaze, heart like stone. "You targeted our civilians." For the first time in Valari history, their queen knelt. Not in surrender. In understanding. The war hadn't ended. But the Valari had finally learned who they were fighting. A species that flirted with queens by accident. And avenged their dead on purpose. The war ended not with surrender. Not with treaties inked in fear. It ended with the galaxy watching, mouths open, trying to compute what had just happened. The queen of the Valari Dominion, still standing amidst the ruins of her ancestral palace, faced the Concord delegates. Ships in orbit twitched like wounded animals. Fleets still burned across the outer systems. Her empire was bleeding, and yet she looked alive, dangerous, unbroken. She turned her eyes toward me. 4 of them, glittering like cold stars. The tension in the room made steel wires feel soft. "You humiliated me," she said, her voice layered with awe, fury, and an emotion no Valari word could capture. "You challenged me. You destroyed what I was." I shrugged. "You started the war," I said. "I just finished the conversation," the delegates whispered. Even the human ambassadors were leaning forward, unsure whether to bow, cheer, or run. She paused, and for a heartbeat, the galaxy seemed to inhale. Then, impossibly, she leaned close and whispered, just for me. "You still think I'm beautiful, human?" I smirked, tired and bruised and exhilarated. "Terrifyingly so," I said. The room erupted. Not with conflict, but with chaos. The Valari's own counselors argued over protocol, military commanders debated chains of command, and the human representatives simply stared at the queen like they had just seen a myth walk in the flesh. The treaty that followed wasn't elegant. It wasn't neat. It was human. Terms written in realpolitik and blood, punctuated with sarcasm and footnotes. Valari fleets were restricted, sure, but so was their arrogance. Trade was resumed cautiously. Borders redrawn. Humanity gained a seat at the Concord's council, not as supplicants, but as equals, volatile, unpredictable, unstoppable. The queen stood beside me one last time before departing her throne ship. She did not bow. She did not offer gratitude. But she did something else, something human history rarely records in alien chronicles. She acknowledged worth. "Humans are dangerous," she said to the assembly, projecting her voice to every corner of the galaxy. "They weaponize affection. They retaliate with creativity. They love like a threat. And they fight like predators disguised as children." She straightened. Claws clicking on polished floors. "The Valari Dominion will watch humanity. Closely. And with respect. Perhaps fear. But respect nonetheless." And then she departed. I exhaled, finally letting myself feel exhaustion instead of adrenaline. Admiral Alvarez clapped a hand on my shoulder. "You just redefined human diplomacy," she said dryly. "By flirting. Accidentally." I chuckled, because that was exactly what it felt like, flirting with death. With empires. With gods. The galaxy learned a lesson that would echo for centuries: never underestimate humans. Especially when they are tired, sarcastic, and entirely unfiltered. Somewhere in the outer rim, human miners laughed as they watched Valari fleets retreat. Somewhere in orbit, children played with unlicensed drones that could one day vaporize a planet. Somewhere on Earth, politicians debated budgets while generals quietly plotted the next move. And I muttered to no one in particular, knowing the truth the Queen had finally understood. Humans weren't just survivors. We were chaos incarnate. Genius wrapped in stubbornness. Terrible, beautiful, dangerous, and utterly human. The galaxy would never forget it. And neither would the Queen. Because sometimes, a careless compliment is all it takes to start a war and end an empire.